Welcome back to another edition of the Recap Pod, the Transfer Portal CFB Recap Pod. I'm your host, Brian. I got with me Adam. He's becoming a mainstay on the Recap Pod. What's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, doing good. One more week, huh?
Yeah, man.
One
It's
more
going by
week.
quick. It's going by quick. This has been, I was actually telling my wife yesterday or the other day, it's like, I feel like this was the quickest football season that I can remember. Like, I have no idea like what happened. Like I feel like I if you ask me about any games that I've watched throughout the season, even like Georgia games, I couldn't tell you. Like it just breezed by. Um, but here we are. I mean, we're going into rivalry week. We're going into the last week of the regular season. Um, and we just had a a very pedestrian week 12, I should say. I mean, not a lot happened. Very chalky. Very, everything kind of just stayed. No big upsets. A lot of uh cupcake. Uh, a lot of teams like to play cupcakes before they get to rivalry week. So we got a lot of cupcake type games that happened over this weekend. But let's break them down. Starting with probably one of the better games on paper going into the weekend. Georgia and Tennessee, number one ranked Georgia going to Tennessee. Um, Tennessee, coming off that blowout to Missouri, and Georgia coming out with that blowout against Ole Miss. I mean, they blew out Ole Miss while Tennessee got blown out by Missouri, but it was still in Neyland Stadium, so anything could happen. And it was same old for Georgia. Another blowout. They went in there and made quick work of Tennessee. Yeah, what's your take on that?
My take is I wasn't really surprised. I think you said on the preview that I said I didn't know how Tennessee was even ranked as high as they were. I thought it was just so because to boost up Georgia's resume. That Tennessee team is not very good at all. I think do they have a ranked win? I don't think so. I think their best win is against Texas A&M or maybe Kentucky, which is just it's pedestrian. The fact that they were ranked 18th going to that game, I thought was criminal. Georgia did what they had to do, just dispatch of a bad team. Um, yeah, I will say though, I think Carson Beck might be sliding into that Heisman race. What do you
Yeah,
think? He's been spinning it recently.
yeah. I mean, he's been very consistent all year. It reminds me a lot about what Stetson Bennett did last year. They kind of just played football, and they weren't. I mean, they weren't going out there throwing six touchdown passes a game. Like some of these other quarterbacks. They were just out there and slinging it, running their offense, winning games, and at the end of the day, they found themselves in New York. I feel he definitely deserves a shot. He definitely deserves to be in New York. I don't know if he can win it. I know that there's a lot of talk, with what Jalen Daniels is doing at LSU, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, even what he did this week, which we'll get to in a little bit. Um, a lot of quarterbacks just kind of playing really good football. And I think it goes back again to that. I mean, it's a very weird year. We haven't really had a lot of chaos this year like previous
Mm,
years. It's been very,
a lot of
very
chalk.
chalk. I mean, yeah, yeah, very, very chalky. It's been we have what, five or six undefeated teams. So yeah, and it was just, but yeah, Carson Beck, you know, a friend of mine asked me like, as a Georgia fan, like, are you nervous, or like, are you ready? Are you nervous? And we text back and forth during the games. And Tennessee, very first play of the game, Tennessee scores. It's Jalen Wright, running back for Tennessee, takes the ball, takes a handoff to the end zone for a 75-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. And then he texts me, like, is like, yo, like, here we go. Are you nervous? I was like, I have no, like, it's so weird. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. And it's not arrogance. It's not being cocky. It's like there's literally nothing that can make me nervous anymore as a Georgia fan. Like, we could be down 21 to nothing, and I still fully expect to win that football game. And it's exactly what happened. I mean, obviously they didn't go down 21 nothing, but they went down 7 nothing. And in the very first play of the game. Rock, Neyland Stadium's going crazy. Everybody's going wild. And then what does Georgia do? Just they go on a I think it was like 34, 30, 38 unanswered or 20, 30 unanswered, something like that. It was 31-7 before you knew it. Ended up winning. They didn't give up another touchdown and finished 38-10. So the same old for Georgia. Tennessee, I don't know. A lot of hype came into this before the season with Jalen Milroe and what not not sorry, not Jalen Milroe.
Milton.
Yeah, Jalen Milton. Joe Milton, sorry. JM's. So they yeah, Joe Milton the third, yeah. So a lot, there was a lot of talk about him. He was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, and that really hasn't worked out. But anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on from there. So another very, I mean, kind of same old for the number two team, Ohio State. They go out. They take care of business at home against Minnesota. Kyle McCord did his thing, nothing crazy. Um, it was just another. I mean, Trevion Henderson kind of took the bulk of the offense. 15 carries, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns there. I mean, just taking care of business as the number two team in the country.
Yeah, I feel like he looks healthy now, right? But he's even
Yeah,
coming in like into his college career. He was so highly recruited. Everybody was just waiting to see like what can Trevor Anderson do, and he showed so many flashes. He just can't consistently stay healthy, but he looks healthy right now. And they get that running game going with those wide receivers on the outside. I mean, it's gonna be tough to stop. They're peaking at the right time, I'll say. So it's
yeah,
gonna be a good one tomorrow, next week.
yeah. That's setting up to what it's going to be. One of probably the game of the season against number three Michigan, which I mean number three Michigan they kind of struggled a little bit. They played with their food a little bit against Maryland this past weekend. They only won by 7. It looked like everything was gonna, it looked like they were gonna go out early and dominate, and they were up 16-3 at the end of the first quarter, and then Maryland kind of hung around for a while and ended up they only lost by a touchdown. So and the only reason they took a late safety for Michigan to even get it. They were within single digits for most of the fourth quarter. So yeah, I mean, you look at Ohio State and you look at Michigan, they're coming into this game in after two completely different games uh this past weekend.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Michigan a little bit of a pass because to go from that Penn State game to kind of like it's hard to be pumped up for 3 straight games, right? Penn
Yeah.
State game, your emotions are high, and then you go play Maryland. It's gonna be a drop off, right? Especially when you have Ohio State right after that. They handle business. JJ McCarthy, I'm beginning to think that he might not be the championship quarterback that some people thought he was. Uh, there was talk about him possibly winning the Heisman as well, but I'm not seeing it consistently anymore. They're not just running through teams, and when they have to pass, they kind of can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're very uh easy early schedules kind of catching up to them a little bit. I feel like now that they're starting to play some real football, it's just and everything with Harbaugh and the whole sign selling stuff. I think it's just a lot of stuff going on. I mean, credit to them for sticking out. I mean, they stuck together and they still ended up winning. I mean, which is what you can't ask for anything else. I mean, a win is a win regardless. But yeah, I mean, JJ McCarthy kind of very pedestrian, game. He did what it was enough to win. I mean, it wasn't anything special. I don't think he was asked to do anything special. Blake Corum, he ran the ball 28 times. So uh, I think they kind of had that game plan going early, and
But here's my
yeah,
thing: like we haven't seen him really do anything special. I think he's gonna have to if they want to win a championship.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you look at the teams that have won the championship winning teams the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's and Alabama's and Clemson's. You have you have the quarterbacks making the big plays to win at the end. We've seen that every year. Last year with Stetson Bennett against Ohio State, he had to make that big throws to win, drive them down the field. We've seen it with uh, you know with uh, Trevor Lawrence in 2019 against Ohio State is again, having to make those plays. So Tua in the Natty. So yeah, we've had these guys, these type of quarterback making these big plays. And does JJ McCarthy have that in him? I think that's a great point. We'll have to see. I mean, we have to see. The last 2 years, Michigan's been in there. They haven't been able. He
And he
hasn't been
looked
able to
good.
make those plays. I know that first year, um, McCarthy didn't start. He played. He did go in there late. I think the game was a little out of hand by that point. That game against Georgia. So, um, but last year I mean, two pick sixes against TCU. Where I actually rewatched that game. Not to get go off on a tangent, but I actually rewatched that game the other day. I was kind of, you know, I was kind of watching old college football playoff games. I rewatched that game, and it was like two pick sixes. They had a couple of, there was a couple of boneheaded plays that JJ McCarthy made that, would take those two pick sixes away. They pretty much would have won that game, I think, without those pick sixes. Granted, I know that the TCU's offense also did played very well, but anyway, yeah. So JJ McCarthy definitely cannot lose games for Michigan. I think he can very easily lose games for Michigan, more so that he can, I think, you know, power them to wins, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we'll see.
um, we'll see what happens. So
Find out real
next,
quick.
yeah, we will find out real quick. I mean, it's no better chance to prove that than this weekend coming up against Ohio State, 2 versus 3 winners. It's probably a de facto. It is a de facto playoff game. The winner
Hmm.
plays in the Big Ten championship game against Iowa. And knowing what Iowa's done all season, I mean, I don't expect any of them to really have any problems with Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. So we'll see. So this is probably a de facto playoff game, I would think. Moving on. I mean, this game would be a non-factor, non-story if it was just uh, if it was just a regular game. But it wasn't just a regular game. We saw the unfortunate unfortunate in, uh, injury that we saw to Jordan Travis of FSU, horrific injury, and otherwise just a regular, which should have been just a cupcake, an easy win, tune-up win before the game against Florida this week, and it turned out to be a lot worse for Florida State. They won the game 58-13, but obviously the story is the injury to Jordan Travis, who's obviously out for the year. So, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. You hate to see it, especially in a game against. No disrespect, this is North Alabama, right? It's just
Yeah,
some things you don't need to do. Taking unnecessary hits like he did. I mean, they were going to win that game. He didn't really need to make the extra play that he did. So it's unfortunate, but that's what you want from your quarterback. I would love that from my quarterback. Go out there and try and make the best play possible, no matter what. But we'll see what
yeah,
happens with Tate. Um, I think they can get by Florida and Louisville. See what the committee does. I guess it depends on how good they look in those wins. I think if they look shaky, then maybe we see like an Ohio State getting over them, or if Washington loses in the Pac-12 championship, maybe Washington gets in over them. But I think
yeah,
if they're undefeated, I think they deserve their spot no matter what.
yeah. I mean, I don't think you know it was any. I mean, with a team like North Alabama, uh, Tate Rodmaker was going to play a lot anyway in this game. So yeah, I think you just you regroup and it kind of has uh you know Cardale Jones vibes from Ohio State a few years
Yeah,
ago. You know what I mean? He had to go out there and play in the Big Ten championship game and then in the playoff game against Alabama and then the playoff game against Oregon, and he played really well. Um, I'm not saying Tate Rodemaker is Cardale Jones by any means, but it's happened before. So I think for Florida State, you have to realize that everything is still in front of you. There's nothing. The season isn't over yet. Yeah, you lose your Heisman candidate quarterback. In a horrific injury. I don't know what else you could have done in that play. I mean, it's a football play. Guy was making a tackle. I know there's a lot of talk about those drop hip tackles and whether wanting those to be banned or be looked at. And I just, I don't know what else you can only take so much away from the defenses. They have to be able to tackle, and I just don't know how you can enforce that.
yeah,
Um,
no. I mean, he
it's
should
just
have
it was
he
just
should have slid, but it's
yeah,
just it's football, you know.
it's football. It's a football play. I
You
mean, I
gotta
don't
get
think,
hurt. Yeah,
yeah, it's just unfortunate, really unfortunate for it to happen. And for it to happen in that situation, a game, like you said, I mean, no disrespect to North Alabama, but they're 3-7. They're one of the worst teams in the FCS. Um, it was a tune-up game to get ready for next week and against Florida and the ACC championship game and um, it's just unfortunate. It really is. It really is unfortunate, and we wish him the best. Jordan Travis is one of the best. He balled out all season. He deserves everything that comes his way moving forward. I hope this isn't the end of him on the football field. I hope to see him at the next level. But yeah, a tough way to go out. And but Florida State, they took care of business regardless. Everything's in front of them. Just got to regroup and uh, keep the ball moving, keep the ball rolling. And it is going to be an interesting conversation to be made by the committee. Is how much does that factor into the decision? I don't think it should. If they finish undefeated and win the ACC, it shouldn't matter at all. They should still be in. It's not their fault that he got hurt. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But one of the better games. Moving on. One of the better games of the weekend. One of the few games that finished within single digits within one possession was Washington and Oregon State. Uh, that was kind of a slow offensive game for Washington after what they've done all year offensively. 22-20. They were shut out in the second half. Um, by Oregon State. And yeah, what's your take on that?
um, I thought it was a good game. I thought it was a great performance by the Huskies. The elements I think really played a factor into you know
Yeah, it was
the
pouring.
low offense. It was pouring. It was cold. Like if you ever try to grip a football, I mean, it's impossible to put any type of touch on those throws. And Michael Penix, you could tell it bothered both him and DJ, but it's a gritty game, and those are the games you kind of have to win. And that's really their only, I guess, like tough like environment game that they'll have left because the Pac-12 championship is in a dome,
Yeah.
and the bowl games, if I'm not mistaken, most of them are all in domes, right? The
Uh,
the
yeah. I mean,
CFB playoff, the playoff
well,
games,
one of them is in the Rose Bowl.
the Rose Bowl. Okay, listen,
So, I mean, but
it'll
still, I
probably
mean,
be California.
yeah,
It'll be fine.
be in Southern California. They
Yeah.
don't worry about weather out there.
So
Uh, yeah,
yeah, they don't have the bad elements. They're able to go out there on turf and show out. They survived. I was watching that game as a Washington. I was rooting against the Huskies. I'm not gonna lie. So I was hoping they would lose, but they handled business, and I think they deserve to be inside the top four in this next playoff rankings, undoubtedly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just another ranked win. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was. I originally when I first turned the game on, I thought it was snowing. because it was raining
Yeah.
so hard. I
Hmm.
thought it was snowing, and I
I
was
thought
like,
it
man,
was
is it
too.
snowing? And then they changed the camera angle, and it was just raining that it was raining so hard that it looked white. It looked like it was snowing. It was crazy. Um, so yeah, uh, and the team that they're probably going to play, or most likely going to play, in the Pac-12 championship game, Oregon, they took care of business. Bo Nix with another man. He That was a high talk about Heisman moments. I mean, 6 touchdowns in the first half. Um, that was just incredible. 42-0 at halftime for Oregon. Uh, I mean, they took
I
care of business
mean,
against Arizona State. There's
shout
really not much
shout
else
out
to
to
talk about.
Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning
Yeah,
is gonna make sure that Bo Nix gets that, at least in conversation to get that Heisman because I mean they had so at some point they had no business throwing the ball as much as they did. Kind of like what LSU doing too with Jaden Daniels. But you know, I would like to see Bo Nix stretch the ball down the field a little more. It's a lot of check downs. I think Oregon by far has the most yards after the catch than any other team. So I mean, it's a lot of bubble screens and things like that, but nobody cares. The stats look good. That's all we
yeah,
care about in the
it's
end.
working.
So yeah,
It's working. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to kind of talk about. I mean, yeah, Oregon just Dan Lanning takes care of business. He takes care of his team. He's done that a few times this season, where he kind of just runs up the score. Um, they did that against Colorado, and they've done it a few times. So shout out Dan Lanning. Uh, Something I wish Kirby Smart did more of. I think Kirby Smart's always tries to play more conservative, which kind of annoying. I feel like if he played like the way Bill, if he coached the way Dan Lanning coached, I think Carson Beck would definitely have a better case for Heisman. But anyway, yeah. Moving on to uh, number 7, Texas. That's your squad. I'll let you take the
sir.
floor on that. What you think about your Tech Longhorns?
I mean, kind of like Washington, going in on the road, night game, cold against a gritty Iowa State team that, this essentially is their bowl game, right? These teams, you're Georgia, Texas, Michigan, you go in these games late in the season. That's what they have to play for. It's a tough game. I thought Texas, they kind of dominated the score, only won by 10. They had 2 touchdowns come off the board, but based on what I thought was kind of soft penalties, but they pretty much dominated the whole game. It was never really a doubt that who was going to win the game. It's just up front, Iowa State just had nothing in the trenches for those Texas boys. So just business as usual, handle business, and move on.
Yeah, yeah. It was just, I mean, that's kind of what it's kind of one of those games at this time of year. You kind of just go in there and don't do anything too flashy, not really
Mm-hmm.
doing anything crazy. Just go in there, get your dub, and move on. And you know, yeah, a couple of turnovers, uh, you know, by Texas that could have kind of probably made the game a little bit more lopsided than the scoreboard says. But yeah, yeah, there's nothing that just taking care of business, and that's the theme of this week. I think it's just taking care of business. I think all the
Yep.
teams that needed to kind of to take care of business, they took care of it, and that's pretty much what the theme of the week is. Like I said, not a lot of big storylines. Same thing with Alabama, number 8. I mean, they
Oh my
said
gosh.
they took care of business, 66-10 against Chattanooga. Um, Jalen Milroe did his thing, 3 touchdowns, 197 passing. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just they're looking ahead to next week against Auburn and then Georgia in the ACC championship game, and kind of took care of business on that.
Play a real team. I'm tired of that. Like, what are
Yeah,
we doing?
yeah. Well, see, when like what I don't get is, and I know I don't mean to keep bringing Georgia up all the time, but when Georgia scheduled all their cupcakes at the beginning of the season, everybody was giving them shit for it. Say, well, your schedule is weak, and then they kind of played they played the bulk of SEC schedule late. I mean, they just came off playing four, as I think it was four ranked teams in a row. Was Kentucky? I think it was no, they played Vanderbilt. So, but they played Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss. Yeah, sorry, it was Florida, Ole Miss, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee in a row. And they're all, and you would look at that and say that's a pretty tough schedule. But for teams who do the opposite, like Alabama, they're getting rewarded by playing Texas early, and they lost. And everybody's talking about how it doesn't matter because it was early in the year, and now they play all their cupcakes late, right? Like you
well,
can't have it both ways,
well,
right? Like
Alabama had two cupcakes. They played Middle Tennessee State or something in the first game of
yeah,
the year.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. So like, what do they want? Like what? Like this is. I mean, we could talk about that conversation. If you're like, oh, it shouldn't matter that they lost to Texas at home. It was week two, or
I think that's
whatever. Like
stupid.
it was early. Like if they were to play now, like I mean, what's the point? What's the point? If you
Yeah,
schedule cupcakes early, they say your schedule sucked. If you schedule, like if you schedule good teams early and you lose, they say it doesn't matter. Or if you schedule good teams early and you win, they say it doesn't matter because it was early. Like, what do you want? You can't have both. But anyway, moving on from Alabama, I don't want to talk about them anymore. We'll talk about them later. Uh, Another kind of a good gritty win,
great
Missouri
win.
against Florida. Florida hasn't had the best season, but they're still an SEC team. They're still a gritty team that can with talent on the roster. And Missouri, went in there and faced some adversity, and they came out with the win. I mean, what Missouri's done this year is very impressive. Uh, it's really, really impressive. They have a lot of. They're not the recruit destination. At Missouri, but they've been able to bring in some talent. Luther Burden is a stud. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the country. If he were to play for anybody else, if he was playing for Alabama, Georgia, LSU, USC, one of these big teams, he'd be he'd be considered one of the, probably, outside of Marvin Harrison, he's probably one of the best receivers in the country. He's balling out. Brady Cook's been balling out too. He threw for over 300 yards. Uh, so yeah, it's a good. It was a good win for Missouri.
Yeah, yeah. Florida, they I don't know how they had the game won, and they
Yeah,
leave. The guy you mentioned, Luther Burden, is just jogs down the field. He's wide open in the middle of the field.
yeah, he dog
But
walked him down the field that last drive.
it's kind of like what you say. It was a handle business game, and that's what they did. Florida now fighting for bowl eligibility. They got Florida State next. Battle of the backups. Um, yeah, but Missouri, they look good. I agree. I think next year they're able to, keep some of those players there. Maybe add more. You mentioned that they've been doing a lot better in recruiting as well.
Yeah,
Like, I think they were in a battle with Texas for Ryan Wingo, and it was I thought he was going to go to Missouri. Like that pool is the SEC pool is still there, and when you win, people
yeah,
will
yeah.
go.
If they can,
People are going to
yeah,
be
if they
you.
can come out and finish out with the top 10, they can finish out in the top 10 and get a New Year's Six
Mm-hmm.
bowl. That only adds to the resume. That only adds to the exposure. Especially with early signing day in December. These recruits watching these bowl games and seeing commercials for Missouri in a Fiesta Bowl or in a Cotton Bowl or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
That
pool.
matters. That matters. People think it doesn't. I mean, they see those types of things. That matters, uh, for sure. So, yeah, shout out, good win for Missouri. I think they kind of maybe got a little too close to the sun there. But they at the end of the day they took care of business and they won that game. A little closer for comfort. Um, oh, and shout out Cody Schrader from Missouri, the running back from
Yes,
Missouri. That
tearing it
dude, that,
up.
that, that dude is balling out. He is, man. His numbers the last few weeks, like it's been incredible. Just look at this. Uh, 140, 23, 148 and one against Florida, 205 and one against Tennessee, 112 and one against Georgia. He ran all through Georgia, and
He
like
did.
we could not stop. Georgia could not stop Cody Schrader. At 159 and two touchdowns against South Carolina. So I mean that's South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. I mean that's a SEC schedule right there. I mean it's not they're not he's not doing this against North Alabama or Chattanooga. He's doing this against the number one team in the country, a top 15 team in Tennessee, a good team, a good SEC defense like Florida. He's doing against these types of teams. He's balling out. Shout out Cody Schrader, a former walk-on. I always have love for the walk-ons. Uh, Good for him. He's balling out. Uh, but anyway, moving on to kind of rapid fire a little bit. Some of these teams here. Well, I mean Louisville and Miami. That was a pretty good game there too. Louisville almost
Oh
like I
my
said,
gosh,
back
it
to that
looks.
theme. Set you know handling business. You're getting too close to the sun. Some of these teams getting way too close to the sun and almost not coming out with wins. Louisville went in there to a not very hostile environment, to put it lightly, in Miami. Um, they couldn't give away tickets to people down there in Miami, but
Yeah, it was bad. They
uh,
tried to. It's even worse.
yeah, they literally did. It was I think they had like a buy one get two special, and that's they
Yeah.
still couldn't fill that place up. So that's terrible. I don't know that NIL money doing numbers in Miami
Mm,
for them to still get all those recruits down there, but yeah, Louisville they handle business.
they they
I mean
did,
that's
but
pretty
they
much it.
did not look good.
No,
I didn't
not at
think
all.
so. I thought Miami ran with all over them or however they wanted to. And
Yeah,
especially Miami that had uh, a hurt Tyler Van Dyke, you knew they couldn't really pass the ball how they wanted to. So they're gonna
he
try
still
and
threw
run
for
the
over
ball.
300 too. Yeah,
Yeah, he still did. I mean, but their main source was the run. They couldn't even stop that. So it did look good, but like you said, they handle business, so it doesn't matter. But I was not
yeah,
impressed.
yeah, yeah. No, it was a little too close for comfort for them. But again, very they everything held serve. They ended up winning that game.
Yeah,
Uh, Same thing for some of these other teams. Number 12, Penn State, they handle business against Rutgers. Nothing too crazy there. Ole Miss, against
no.
UL Monroe, they handle business there. I mean, another cupcake. SC teams love their cupcakes, man. I mean, they love their cupcakes. SEC teams love their cupcakes. But they handle business. LSU, another one, they handle business against Georgia State. Jaden Daniels probably solidifying his Heisman run. I
Yeah.
don't care that they're 8-3. That's no, I mean that's never stopped the Heisman winner before. Uh, like Lamar Jackson, I think they lost 4 games when he won Heisman. So I
Mm-hmm.
think Jaden Daniels is locking up the Heisman, and I think that's kind of the goal at this point of the season. They're
Oh,
not
that was
playing for
definitely their
anything.
goal versus Georgia State. They
Yeah,
let him air it out. They had no, kind of like Oregon. They just had no business throwing the ball like that.
yeah,
Look
yeah,
at that.
exactly. Yeah, they
I
had no
respect it
business.
though.
Yeah, I mean, 413 yards,
Mm-hmm.
six touchdowns, and he put he had 8 total touchdowns,
Yeah,
500 yards and 8 total touchdowns. That's just
I
that's just
think LSU he has a great shot at getting it. The only thing that's gonna hurt him is he doesn't have the conference championship to kind of leave that last impression. Like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, even Carson Beck, they'll have the final say. What they do with it, who
yeah,
knows? But like if Bo Nix goes out there and lights it up against Washington, then he's gonna win the Heisman. So I think same
yeah,
with Michael
yeah,
Penix. So,
yeah, yeah.
but as
That's
of
true.
right
We'll see.
now, I would say I think he's the favorite as of right now.
Yeah, and there's still time for some of these other guys to kind of cannibalize themselves late.
Yeah,
Um, like you mentioned, Michael Penix and Bo Nix. I don't know how much it'll matter. How much winning will be taken into account.
it's how they
Um,
win though. Like if they light it up, then it might change things.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's and I feel like last year was kind of it kind of set the tone. I mean, but the guy who won it, Caleb Williams, wasn't in the playoff. I mean, the other three, I don't know, Stetson Bennett, C.J. Stroud, and Max Duggan were all in the playoffs. I think that's kind of what put them. I think that's gonna like. I think that's what put those three guys into the conversation over, uh, some of these other guys that probably could have been in there as well. Um,
Yeah, see,
so
I think that if Max Duggan and TCU, if they won their conference championship, Max Duggan probably would have won, right? If CJ Stroud didn't lose to Michigan and they had another game against wherever they played, was it Iowa? I think it was Iowa. And they won, I
yeah,
think CJ Stroud probably would have
if
won it
if
too.
C.J.
Caleb, because
Stroud,
Caleb
if
Williams lost to Utah. Hey, all three of them lost. Whoever,
yeah,
if somebody won, I think they might have had a better chance of getting mine over
yeah,
Caleb.
I like people brought up Hendon Hooker a lot last year. I think if Hendon Hooker was playing for an SEC title or was playing, if they hadn't lost like two, he probably would have been in New
Mm-hmm.
York. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So, um,
it just
I
depends
mean,
on the year, I guess.
like I think, Stetson Bennett probably was in there because he was undefeated and he won the SEC title game. And
Yeah.
if the Heisman voting was done after the Peach Bowl and see what C.J. Stroud did against Georgia in the Peach Bowl, he would have won the Heisman for sure. But that's not the
Mm-hmm.
way it works. But the one good game, decent game that we saw, uh, in that top 15, in that kind of range, 10 to 15 range was Oklahoma BYU. BYU squeaking out a win. Another one that's kind of squeaked out a win against a lesser opponent, BYU. Dylan Gabriel 191 with two touchdowns. Took a touchdown late. I
Yeah.
think it was a pick. I think they took the lead on a pick six. I think it was.
Yeah, it did.
Um,
Bowman pick six
yeah,
on
a
the
100 yard pick
on
six
BYU was
on the
supposed to
one.
score, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
So, uh,
Billy Bowman
uh,
Jr.
yeah, that kind of flipped the game around. Uh, middle of the third quarter, that was kind of how kind of gave Ohio Oklahoma the momentum there. So another kind of grimy gritty game for Oklahoma there. Do you have
Saw
any
another
takes on that?
injury too. Dylan Gabriel, another quarterback injury.
Yeah,
Dylan
yeah, he
Gabriel
did
went
get
out.
hurt. He did get hurt. That's right. Yeah, man. It's at the end of the year, your body start breaking down. You got to start protecting these players.
I forgot we saw
Um,
with Graham Mertz too in Florida.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Graham Mertz went down. A lot of these quarterbacks go down. It's kind of scary. Um, so yeah, that was another gritty win. Any comments outside of that on that game there?
No, no, they shouldn't have, that game shouldn't have been as close as it was, but
Yeah,
it is what
yeah.
it is.
You get those games
BYU's
this season,
tough.
and they're playing at home too.
Yeah.
So, uh, that's part of it. Um, Iowa, another very Iowa game, fifteen
Oh my
thirteen win
gosh.
against Illinois. They
No,
they they let they led early 2-0 on a safety. Uh, another Iowa type game to clinch the Big Ten West title. So, um,
I'm so glad we're done with
yeah,
that next year. We have to see them play on
yeah,
championship Sundays anymore.
they don't have divisions anymore next year. So they won't get away with that next year. I mean, hey, they're 9-2 though. They're winning
I
their
don't
games
care.
that they,
I don't care.
but I don't know how they're doing it. But they're winning. And
They're
so
not
here,
playing
they
anybody. That's
won.
how they're doing it.
Yeah, that's true. They're not playing anybody, but uh, yeah. I mean, it's just another Iowa type game that they went out there and won against Illinois. Uh, so yeah, and another one of the other ranked matchups that we saw, Arizona and Utah. Uh, I was very surprised by Utah. They went out there and won 42-18. I mean, completely dominated Utah. Um, so yeah, what's your take on that?
I mean, Arizona Jetfish Coach of the Year. Coach of the Year, especially if they sneak into the Pac-12 championship, they got a shot. They're big Beaver fans, but if Oregon State knocks off Oregon, all they have to do is win and they're in. So with a freshman
Yeah,
quarterback, come on, Arizona. Good job. Props to them. We've been talking about them for the last 2 weeks over here. We're big fans of Arizona. It's an Arizona
yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Shout out Arizona, man. They're handling business for sure. They're doing what they're doing. I always love to see these turnarounds happen in college football. These teams that kind of
Mm-hmm.
struggles for a while and then they start having some success. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for these programs to kind of have this, to see that it's possible, um, to kind of bounce to get out of the basement, get out of the darkness, and start winning some football games and having some good seasons. I mean, it's not, it's not a a 10-1 or 9-2 type year. I'm sorry, 10-2 or 9-3 type year. I mean, it could be a 9-3 year for sure. But you know, it's not a New York Six Bowl type season, but it's a good stepping stone. And they
Mm-hmm.
can always build on that. And I think better days are ahead for the Arizona
Great
football
momentum going
program
into
for
the
sure.
Big 12 too. Great
Yeah,
momentum.
definitely. They have a great amount of great opportunities to win some games next year in the
Mm-hmm.
Big 12 for sure. Um, so uh, yeah, moving on. I mean, Notre Dame, took care of business against Wake Forest, 45-7. Not much really there to talk about. Sam
No.
Hartman, I mean, Notre Dame kind of took the wind out of their sails. A couple losses here. That lost to Clemson and they uh kind of took away, their spotlight a little bit, but they handle business. They're still 8-3. They're still playing, they still got to be a lot of pride playing for Notre Dame and Sam Hartman building his NFL resume. Uh, but yeah, it's a good win for them. Wake Forest is in bad shape. Nice to see Sam Hartman beat his previous squad. That's always nice as a player, I would think.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, not much. Any comments on that? I mean, not much else to say on that game.
Yeah, I mean, what you expected. Good job, Sam Hartman. Seems like a great guy. Wish him nothing but the best, the next
Yeah,
level. You know.
yeah, definitely. No, I wish him nothing but the best. He's a good dude from all I've heard of him. Speaking of Clemson, they've been bit man. They've kind of turned their season around in a hurry the last few weeks. All of a sudden, they're 7-4. I think they were 3-4. A couple weeks. And they're I think they've won 4 games in a row. I think they were 3-4 for a while, or
Four
they
and
started the
five.
season or 4-5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're 7-4, so they weren't 4-5. So they must
Oh,
have been.
five and
It
four.
must have been. Yeah, it must have been. They were. I know they were 500 at least 500. Early on they weren't winning a lot of games, and then ever since that rant, what was that dude? Kyle calling in that radio show with
Yeah.
Dabo Sweeney. They've won. They've knocked down some wins. They beat Notre Dame last week. I think it was last week they beat Notre Dame, and then here they are against
That was 2 weeks ago.
uh 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so here they are against another ranked win against North Carolina, 31-20. Uh, Kate Klubnik, 219 and a tutty. So good for Clemson to kind of ride the ship this season. What do you think?
Yeah, Will Shipley. I mean, he was a story. He's changing. He's changing the way you look at the running back position. I think he's been doing it all. But
Yeah, yeah,
Dabo, he bet on himself. I don't think that this really changes much how I view Clemson. Like I'm not gonna take a lot of stock in them beating, UNC or Georgia Tech or a Notre Dame team that's not as great as we thought they were. Because that's not what Clemson's about. Clemson isn't about turning it on. Like Clemson is about being undefeated and playing for national championships. So this doesn't really change much for me because I was thinking until Dabo changes his team building style, I think it's kind of what you're going to see now. You might see an 8-3, 10-2 maybe season, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think the national championship runs are behind Clemson for a little while. I think unless they change.
Unless they
I feel
change.
they have to change their ways. They can't sustain a program that way. But I mean, shout out. I mean, if Dabo wants to run a program that way, you know,
You can
more
win
power
games
to him.
like that, but can you win championships? That I don't know. He's a great
Yeah,
coach, so they're gonna win. They're gonna win games.
yeah, yeah. They might compete for the ACC. It's like last year. They won the ACC last year.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Another one of the final rank matchups you saw this past weekend. Kansas State and Kansas. That was actually a pretty
That was
decent game.
a great game.
Yeah, it was a hell of a game. You know, it was a pretty good game between Kansas and Kansas State. I felt that Kansas had the edge there at home. But I was proven wrong. Uh, the Kansas State, Will Howard, not the best game, he's played, but DJ Giddens, over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown.
Mhm.
Just very, very nice, very good offensive game. But just kind of did enough to win, in my opinion, for Kansas State. I think either team could have easily won that game, and ultimately the Wildcats ended up winning that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I thought that Kansas State still has like a top three roster in the Big 12. And the
Yeah,
fact that Kansas was able to make that game super interesting, had a chance to win the game with their third string quarterback. I mean, it's just shout out to what the program that they built there as Leipold and those boys. I think it's safe to say that they've ingrained themselves as a top 30, top 40 program in the country, which is insane to say 5 years ago. You would have never said that Kansas is a legit, you know, top 25, top 30 team in the country now. And that's all credit to what they've done there, the hard work. And you see, it pays off. It takes time, but you,
yeah,
you can get there.
yeah. I mean, it's again, it's 'cause we talked about these teams that these programs that kind of get out of the cellar, out of the you know uh, the basement, and then they rack up some good seasons. They're not amazing seasons, but in the standards of other programs, but very good winning competitive games, and they're not anybody's cupcake anymore. And I think Kansas has proven that over the
Yeah,
last few
I
years.
mean, they were ranked for at least over half the year, haven't they been? I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
sure.
They've,
I
I
think
mean,
they have been.
they've
They
been
started out
ranked.
4-0,
They
so they've
have
been
been.
ranked for a while.
They've been ranked all year, I think, for the majority of the season at least. I mean, before that was their highlight of the year is being ranked, and now that
Mm-hmm.
that's not enough anymore, which is good. It's a good thing. Shout out Devin Neal. 3 touchdowns on the ground, 138
Yeah.
yards. Wasn't enough to get the win, but still he kept Kansas in the game with their third string quarterback. So yeah, um, yeah, good. I know Kansas State won this game, but it shouldn't put it past what Kansas did, and the type of game that they played and the adversity that they faced to kind of keep it close and lose by a touchdown. So
For sure.
that was good for them. Uh, uh, not even a touchdown. They lost by 4. So yeah. Um, so Oklahoma State last couple ranked teams here. Oklahoma State handled business against Houston.
They
Not
finally,
much.
yeah, they finally woke up. They slept walked through the first quarter, but after that, they dominated them.
Yeah, yeah, one of those types of games. I feel like that happens. You kind of you find yourself down early. Same thing with Florida State did. Found themselves down early. Just kind of turn it on, flip the switch there, late, and that's what they did. Good team win for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, last ranked win, Tulane. Uh, Kind of keeping the pace. A lot of people thought that after those losses last year that they had, uh, Tajay Spears and um, couple some of those other guys they lost last year, they were going to kind of fall back, and they're still right in the thick of things. I mean, the American
Tough.
conference
It's
race is
tough.
looking it's looking real scary, real tough. That yeah,
Three undefeated
yeah.
teams, two of them play each other. What do you think? Give me a preview. You're a UTSA guy. Before we get
So
out of here, give me a preview. UTSA
yeah,
versus
so
Tulane.
so that was gonna be so the last thing we were gonna talk about was like the best thing we saw this weekend, the best storyline we saw this weekend. And for me was Frank Harris. What Frank Harris did um, you know, on Friday night against South Florida was, to stay undefeated at home. His final home game, he's been at Georgia since the Abraham Lincoln administration. I mean, he's been at UTSA since the Abraham Lincoln administration. He's been there for a minute, 7 years. I think this is his seventh season. He 523 yards and 6 touchdowns in his final home game. And I mean, they started clicking. They started the season off real slow. I mean, they started 1-3. They had a couple of losses, a lot of injuries early. Frank Harris missed a couple games, and they're starting to click, man. They're clicking on offense. It's gonna be a tough game against Tulane though, and on Saturday. Um, it's gonna be
Yeah.
tough. It's gonna be tough. So, actually, I think they play on Friday. What's the
Is it
24th?
Friday?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Friday. Yeah.
24th
So
is Friday. Yeah.
So they play on Friday afternoon on ABC on national television. Uh, winner goes to the AC
You have
championship
a
game.
special guest.
Oh, hey, what's up? I do have a professional guest. Come here. He woke up from his nap.
Hey.
Uh, so yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. We'll have to see who wins that game. The winner goes to the AC championship game, and the way things are looking, you can argue that the winner of the AAC is going to go to the New Year's Six Bowl. So
I
a
agree.
lot of a lot of a lot of riding on this matchup coming up for sure. And you can't count out SMU. They're right up in there too. So, uh, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a bloodbath between these three teams.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I predict that SMU is going to come out of that at the end, but
Yeah, football.
it could be either one of those three.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. SMU was in a tight game versus Memphis too. That was a great game. I don't know if you got to
That
watch
was a
that
great
one.
game. Yeah, we didn't get into the non ranked games. I mean, we'd be here forever. We
Yeah.
go through some of the other games that went on, but yeah, man. Not to get too far, but Tulane and UTSA is going to be a hell of a game on Friday night.
hmm
What they did, what Georgia, I keep saying Georgia, what UTSA did on when Frank Harris did was his current call, a school record, 523 yards and 6 touchdowns. Um, their seventh game in a row. Jeff Trailers is having conversations with Texas A&M. So this might be UTSA's last real shot at an NY six bowl for a while. Um, so yeah, they have to take care of business here coming up. What about you? What was your thing that impressed you the most? What was the best thing you saw this weekend?
Oh, we kind of talked about it. It's Arizona. The way they dismantled Utah, I thought they would win. I didn't think they win like that. They go up 21-0 in the first quarter. And it's a Utah team. Yes, the offense leaves a lot to be desired, but that defense is still legit. And Arizona, they just ran right through them. It was impressive. And I'm just to be 6-2 and have a chance to go to the Pac-12 championship. And everybody was saying is the deepest Pac-12, deepest conference we've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
here they are taking
yeah.
it over.
What a way for the Pac-12 to end their reign, their run here in
Mm-hmm.
college football. Was a lot of good teams, a lot of really really good teams in that conference. Um, so yeah, shout out to Pac-12. But um, yeah, man. So that's kind of all that I got. Any other words you got before we get out of here?
Oh, we'll do it again next week. Big games on Friday. Friday games. Let's
Yeah,
get it.
yeah. Last game of the year. We'll be back together next week. Brian and Adam will recap next week. The final weekend of the regular season outside of the Army Navy game. in the conference championship games. Some people count that as regular season, some people don't. I don't really know, but uh, the last weekend that every team in college football plays is next weekend. So yeah, football, and we'll recap that next week. So uh, we'll see what happens. So, but until then, we'll catch you guys later.